This statement is not a rejection of religion, but a reminder of how easily we mistake the symbol for the source. Truth, real, direct, unfiltered truth, cannot be confined within walls, however sacred. It cannot be stitched into garments, however holy. It does not belong to any one faith, language, tradition, or culture. It simply is, untouched by interpretation, unchanged by belief. Temples are built from stone. Truth is not located at any specific coordinate, nor does it wait behind any particular door. A person may walk barefoot across mountains and deserts, visit 1,000 shrines, and still miss it. Another may sit alone beneath a tree watching their breath and come face to face with it without ever knowing its name. Robes may signify discipline, devotion, or detachment, but they can also conceal ego, pride, or delusion. To wear robes is not wrong. To believe the robe makes the man whole he is. Truth does not bow to appearances. It does not favor the clean-shaven head over the disheveled one. It does not whisper louder in sacred languages than in the silent gaze of a child. It is not more present in the chants of monks than in the cry of a bird or the silence between raindrops. People often look for truth in holy books, hoping that words will save them. But words are fingers pointing. They are maps. They are not the terrain itself. You can memorize every scripture and still remain asleep. You can quote prophets and still speak from ego. Truth must be lived, not recited. In temples, people kneel. They bow. These acts are not without meaning, but if done without awareness, they become empty. A gesture made without understanding is like a flame without heat. True reverence arises not from habit, but from direct perception, seeing life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Truth exists before temples. It was here before robes were sewn, before titles were given, before books were written. It was in the wind long before the first bell rang. It hides not behind rituals, but in the space between them. You do not need to become a monk to touch it. You do not need to leave your home or join an order. You only need to be deeply present, honest with yourself, and willing to let go of everything you think you know. Truth does not belong to temples, nor does it wear robes. It is not a possession. It cannot be trademarked. It cannot be bought, sold, or granted by any other. This phrase, often repeated in Zen teachings, is a simple metaphor with deep meaning. The moon represents truth, enlightenment, or direct experience. The finger represents the teachings, the methods, the words, and all the systems we use to describe that experience. The warning is clear. Do not confuse the description for the reality. Do not mistake the path for the destination. When someone points to the moon, the gesture is meant to guide your gaze upward beyond them, towards something vast and luminous. But if your attention stays fixed on the hand, the gesture fails. The whole purpose of the finger is to lead you to look past it. Yet human nature often clings to the visible, the familiar, the tangible. We hold on to teachings, we quote masters, we build philosophies, we memorize texts. And in doing so, we sometimes forget to look. The finger, be it a sacred book, a spiritual teacher, or a religious tradition, is useful. It can direct you. It can help orient your inner compass. But if you believe the finger is the source of truth itself, you remain in illusion. The moon is in the sky. It is silent beyond language. It cannot be possessed. You must see it for yourself. Every teaching, every metaphor, every parable is a tool. But tools are meant to be used, not worshipped. A map is not the territory. A menu is not the food. Reading about fire will not warm you. Reading about love will not make your heart open. Studying the idea of awakening will not awaken you. Until your eyes meet the moon, until your awareness shifts beyond the finger, the truth remains second-hand. Some cling to the finger because it is safer. The moon requires solitude, silence, and surrender. It cannot be held, only seen. People often argue over which finger is correct, whose tradition is true, whose teacher is greater, whose method is best. These debates are all taking place while the moon continues to shine quietly above them, waiting to be noticed. The tragedy is not that people have different fingers, it is that they rarely look beyond them. Some kiss the finger, some decorate it, others fight over it, but very few truly lift their eyes. The moon cannot be explained, it must be seen. No one can do it for you. The finger can guide, but it cannot reveal. Revelation happens in the moment you stop looking at the hand and begin looking at the sky. Language is a tool, but also a trap. The moment we name something, we separate it from everything else. A tree. A river, a person, a nation. Once labeled, they become distinct in our minds, no longer part of the seamless whole. Labels create categories, and categories create distance. But before language, before thought, all things simply are flowing, changing, interwoven, indivisible. A tree does not know it is a tree, it simply grows. A bird does not know it is a bird, it simply flies. The sun does not rise or set, it just burns. These are labels we give to movements we do not control, trying to make sense of what cannot be contained. The moment we define something, we reduce it, we strip away its mystery, we trade experience for explanation. We label people too by race, by gender, by religion, by nationality, by belief. The labels become identities, and identities become walls. Once someone is a this or a that, we stop seeing them as they are and start seeing them as we expect them to be. Division begins in the mind, but it does not stay there. It spills into how we treat each other, how we form groups, how we justify harm. Labels may help us navigate the world, but they also blind us to its unity. Existence does not divide itself. Water becomes cloud, becomes rain, becomes river, becomes ocean. No part is separate. One breath you take came from a tree, and the next one might be exhaled by a stranger beside you. Your skin is not a boundary. It is a meeting point of countless processes inherited from stars, soil, and time. The idea of a self and other is useful for survival, but it is not ultimately true. When you stop naming even for a moment, the world becomes whole again. A leaf is not a beautiful or a green or a dying. It is simply what it is beyond concepts. And in that seeing, something shifts. You no longer stand apart judging or analyzing, you participate. You belong. The more tightly we hold to labels, the more we suffer. We say, I am this kind of person, and build cages around our minds. We say, they are that kind of person, and lock our hearts. But the wind does not care for borders. The rain falls on all alike. Life moves without names. To live without labels is not to reject meaning, but to return to it. To return to it. To remember that before a me and you, there was only a this breath, this moment, this vast indivisible whole. Peace is not something that must be added to you. It is already present, hidden beneath the noise. The teachings of religion, the structure of rituals, the guidance of sacred texts, all of these are fingers pointing toward a stillness that has always existed within. But the silence that reveals peace does not come from outside. It is not granted by belief. It arises when the mind stops searching. The mind is constantly moving, seeking, judging, labeling, fearing. It creates stories of past and future, invents problems, compares what is with what should be. This movement is not evil, it is simply restless, but in its restlessness, it forgets how to be still. And without stillness, peace remains unreachable. Not because it is far away, but because we are too busy to notice it. Religion can offer tools to guide the mind toward quiet. It can create an atmosphere of reverence, a context for reflection, but it cannot give peace. It can only point the way. True peace is not a reward. It is not the result of earning favor from a divine being. It is what remains when all inner conflict dissolves, and conflict dissolves when thought loses its grip. When the mind is silent, there is no past to regret, no future to fear. There is no self-image to defend, no argument to win. There is just presence, clear, open, undivided. In that space, one does not feel the need to belong to anything, to label oneself as follower, believer, or seeker. There is nothing missing, and so there is nothing to search for. Many turn to religion because they are suffering. They seek peace through prayer, through devotion, through surrender. These can be powerful paths. But if the mind remains filled with thoughts of guilt, of hope, of doctrine, of worthiness, then peace still lies beyond reach. It is not the name of the practice that matters. It is the silence that comes when you stop grasping. The mystics of every tradition have said the same thing in different words. They speak of inner stillness, of the desert of the heart, of the soundless center. Their message is not bound by religion. It is prior to it. They do not tell you to believe more, but to be still. In the absence of mental noise, the peace they speak of is not an idea. It is a lived reality. One does not need a path when one is already home. And silence is the doorway through which that home is found. When thought ends, there is no need for explanation. There is only the quiet recognition that everything is already as it should be. Belief is a structure, a mental formation built from memory, teaching, culture, and emotion. It provides comfort, identity, and a sense of certainty in a world that constantly changes. But the more tightly we hold to belief, the less we are able to see what actually is. Belief can serve as a guide, but when clung to, it becomes a filter through which all experience is distorted. Truth is not a belief, it is not something you decide is real. It is not chosen, it is discovered, sometimes painfully, sometimes slowly, often without warning. And to discover, the mind must be open. It must be willing to see without conclusion, without expectation, without trying to protect its previous ideas. A mind filled with belief has already made up its mind. A mind seeking truth must remain flexible, vulnerable, and empty enough to receive. To hold tightly to belief is to insist that one already knows. It is to close the door to further seeing. This is not just about religion. It applies to science, to philosophy, to politics, to personal identity. When we grip belief like a shield, we protect ourselves from uncertainty, but we also blind ourselves to insight. A clenched fist cannot receive. A mind that defends its position cannot learn. Truth is fluid. It changes as understanding deepens. It reveals itself layer by layer, often in contradiction to what we once thought we knew. Those who are willing to let go of belief, who are not afraid to be wrong, are the ones who move closer to it. But letting go is not the same as rejecting or denying. It means holding belief lightly, knowing that it is a stepping stone, not a destination. Belief can inspire great devotion, but it can also become dogma. It can bring people together, but it can just as easily divide. It can point toward truth, but it can also obscure it when it becomes rigid. When belief is held too tightly, it no longer serves truth, it replaces it. The greatest obstacles to truth are not lies, but convictions we refuse to question. To grasp truth requires humility. It requires stillness, observation, and a deep willingness to unlearn. It may require you to leave behind the very ideas that once gave you comfort. But what is lost in certainty is gained in clarity. A man who clings to belief may find security, but he will not find truth. Because truth is not something that belongs to anyone, it does not bend to the will of belief. It is revealed only when belief loosens its grip and the mind becomes still enough to see without distortion. There are no walls in the sky, there never have been. And yet, throughout history, humanity has drawn borders across what is infinite. We have built walls from beliefs, rules, and ideologies, trying to frame the unframeable to possess the ungraspable. We have taken the open sky of truth and divided it with doctrines. We have said, this is mine, that is yours, and called it sacred, but the sky cannot be owned, it cannot be caged. It belongs to no religion, no nation, no teacher, no book. It simply is vast, boundless, undivided. And yet, the mind insists on building its walls, for it is afraid of what has no shape. It fears what it cannot control. So it draws lines, builds temples, invents systems, and systems says, this is the way. But in doing so, it forgets to look up. And then a monk, unassuming, unarmed, speaks a single sentence. One breath, not a debate, not a sermon. Just a quiet truth so clear that it cuts through centuries of illusion. Not because it attacks, but because it reveals. In that one breath, the walls crumble not through violence, but through clarity. The breath he speaks is not just air, it is presence, awareness. It is the refusal to accept false limits. It is the willingness to see beyond what has been taught. His words do not add anything, they remove. They dissolve the artificial boundaries around the sacred. And when the walls fall, the sky returns, not because it ever left, but because the eyes are finally open to it. People build walls to feel safe, to define what is true and what is false. But truth does not ask for walls, it asks for openness, openness. When someone dares to breathe outside the walls, they are called a rebel, a heretic, even a threat, because walls protect identity, and identity fears being undone. But what if undoing is the very doorway to freedom? That monk did not invent freedom, he remembered it. And in remembering, he helped others remember too, not through conversion, but through pointing back to what has no owner, no edge, no name. The sky, the silence, the space where truth lives before it is spoken. Men built their walls with conviction. He destroyed them with silence, not by force, but by showing they were never needed, by speaking what everyone already knew but had forgotten, that what is real cannot be contained, that what is eternal cannot be claimed, that the sky was always open and the walls were always imaginary.